The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
After much speculation, Mike McDaniel is out as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast.
Mike McDaniel is out. Let's start there. This is not a drill. The Dolphins have elected to make a change. Stephen Ross has already released a statement. Reportedly, they met this morning. Mike McDaniel was informed the staff. And there's a lot of layers that go into a decision like this. And you knew that this was going to be a hard decision for Stephen Ross because it had been reported all the way back in October. They want it to work. They want it to work. They want Mike McDaniel to have the chance to keep the team playing hard for him. They want to find excuses, really, to keep Mike McDaniel. I think this is the right decision. And I want to be respectful of Mike McDaniel, right? Like, Mike McDaniel came to Miami and gave his absolute best for 4 years. The product was not where it needed to be, and the product regressed in alarming ways. Do I think in an alternative reality, Mike McDaniel would be successful in Miami? Maybe. Do I think there are some consistent issues across all 4 years that make it alarming to think that the tide is going to change? And when you do an evaluation and when the timing lines up with we're doing a general manager change, it just feels like the appropriate thing to do. I don't want it to get lost that somebody and somebodies are going to be out of work and need to find new opportunities, right? So you won't catch me on here celebrating Mike McDaniel being dismissed. But I think it's the right decision. And as a fan of the team, I think this is a cause for optimism with what comes next for the Dolphins, because since Stephen Ross has bought this franchise, there has not been a single example of a full organizational reset, right? When you consider Stephen Ross buys the team, 50% of the team in 2008, and then 2009 buys the other 98% of the franchise, right? Tony Sparano was already in place. Jeff Ireland was already in place. Bill Parcells left. And Tony and Jeff fight. And then Jeff stays on, and we dismiss Tony after we made flirtations with Jim Harbaugh. And then Joe Philbin stays, and Jeff Ireland's out. And then we try to hire a GM to pair with Joe Philbin, and they have a hard time finding a candidate. So then they hire Dennis Hickey, and then they promote Chris Grier from within in 2016, but they bring Mike Tannenbaum in to work alongside / above Chris Grier. And then they move on from Joe Philbin, and they hire Adam Gase, and then closest they got is 2019 when they got rid of Adam Gase and they moved on from Tannenbaum, but Grier was the GM by title before that anyway. And he'd been with the organization for 25 years. So let's not forget, when the Dolphins dismissed Chris Grier, the following week, they also ousted the top 2 scouts, the head of pro scouting and the head of college scouting. Now you have a coach change that is in on top of this. And that's what comes to the statement that I read from Stephen Ross that I want to have up here. After careful evaluation and extensive discussion since the season ended, I have made the decision that our organization is in need of comprehensive change. I informed Mike McDaniel this morning that he has been relieved of his duty as head coach. I love Mike and want to thank him for his hard work, commitment, and energy he brought to our organization. Mike is an incredibly creative football mind whose passion for the game and his players was evident every day. I wish him and his family the best moving forward. The acceptance that this was necessary, I think, is the thing that I'm most, as a fan, excited about. Because everybody remember it. Well, I'm old enough to remember 3 days ago when the Dolphins put out their request for GM candidates to interview. And 3 of them were from San Francisco. And everybody leapt to that assumption, right? Oh, they're loading the deck in favor of Mike McDaniel with the GM candidates. They're just going to hire whoever they like best from San Francisco because he's used to working with Mike, and Mike's going to be insulated because that is what for the last 15 years, Dolphins fans have been bred to assume this organization is going to do when it comes time to make change. There's a whoopee, if you will, right? Like I got 2 kids under 5. My son doesn't have whoopies. My daughter had a whoopee. And when we had our second, it was, all right, like, let's try to be conscious of not having the comfort blanket that we hold on to until we're 4, right? And my son's 2, and we got him off the whoopee already, right? Is a conscious decision to change instead of doing the same thing over and over again. And the analogy here is for a lot of Stephen Ross's tenure of the team, there's been a comfort person, somebody that he liked, that we want to change, but I really like this and I want to hold on to it and I don't want to move on from this. It's what's going to make me feel good about what is going to come. And when you do that and your organization is not aligned, you've got a coach in this hypothetical, say you hire somebody else. You got a GM that comes in, you either retrofit him to Mike McDaniel, or you bring somebody else in to serve as the check and balance to Mike McDaniel. But Mike's going to come into 2026 feeling the pressure to win. He's been on the hot seat the last 2 years and had 2 straight losing seasons. That GM understands, I've got time. I just got hired. I'm doing the long-term game. Look how that worked for Las Vegas this year, right? Because Las Vegas, they brought everybody in at the same time, but they were still people on dramatically different timelines. John Spytek, Tom Brady brought in to be the GM of the team. He played college football at Michigan with Tom. You think he's pressed about the first year? Who'd they hire as their coach? Pete Carroll, who instantaneously, the moment he put pen to paper, was the oldest head coach in the league. You think Pete's going to wait around? And Pete's going to take his sweet time and take 4 years to build a roster when he's 74? It wasn't aligned, and it created conflict. And what did the Raiders do with their first-round pick? They took Ashton Genty, a running back. You know who didn't play particularly efficiently, no matter how physically talented he is? Ashton Genty, a running back in the top 10, because that's a win-now type move to draft a running back that early. Right? Those are the kind of pitfalls you were worried about Miami falling into if they did not have the conviction to look themselves in the mirror and say, we need to change. They did it. That should be applauded. That is a huge development for the Dolphins and their outlook as a franchise. That doesn't mean the forecast for 2026 is going to look any rosier, right? But I think it opens the door for these general manager candidates that the Dolphins are having in these. The in-persons started today. We'll talk a little bit more about that process on the other side of a quick break. There's a ton of you who are watching live on YouTube. This is going to go out to the podcast feed on Locked On Dolphins. I appreciate each and every one of you guys checking out the show. This is obviously a monumental day for the future of the Dolphins. This is obviously a monumental moment for Stephen Ross's tenure as the owner of the team, that this kind of move was accepted as necessary.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
The first game of the NFL postseason features a rematch between the Panthers and the Rams.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's Panthers, it's Rams to open up the playoffs, 4:30 Eastern Time, 1:30 Pacific Time. Julian Council joined by Travis Rogers of Locked On Rams. Travis, I got to talk to Doug back in week 13. Happy to talk to you here in week 1 of the playoffs, which has been a while since Carolina's been in it. But of course, the Rams are very used to being at this stage of the season.
Yeah, it's funny when they were getting ready to go into Charlotte to play them a few weeks ago. I think that the Rams were hoping to skip this weekend altogether. They were kind of in a position to control their own fate going into the last chunk of the season. And had they taken care of their business, they would be home. Instead, Seattle's at home, and the Rams are playing a wild card game to a team that already beat them once this year. So it changes fast in this league, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And also had the Lions' proposal to have just the seeding be based off of record, had that gone on, it'd actually be LA as the 2 seed and Carolina as their 7 seed. So no matter what, where we were going to get this matchup here this weekend. But yeah, you're right, because I was pretty high on LA at that point in time. I felt like the Rams are very clearly the best team in the NFL. And then they lose to the Panthers, who have very much been up and down team and really are limping into the playoffs. But since then, it's been a weird season for them. Obviously, the biggest story is that both these teams are in the playoffs. But how's the mood there in LA heading into this game, knowing that I'm thinking there's probably a finite amount of time they feel like they have with Matthew Stafford in trying to go after yet another Lombardi trophy?
Yeah, I think the mood could probably be best described as cautious optimism. Going into Carolina the first time, I think that most Rams fans thought how you felt, Julian, which is, we have the best team. We have a quarterback that's playing at a high level. You've got weapons like Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Kyren Williams. You've got a defense that's got a megastar in Jared Verse. They're able to get after the quarterback. And really the only question for the Rams at that point was whether or not they're going to have their special teams unit kind of get, not good, because it's still not good, but not terrible. And that's kind of what the last piece of the puzzle was. Lose to Carolina. You have a brutal loss against Seattle on Thursday Night Football that goes into overtime. You blew a 16-point lead well into the fourth quarter. Yeah. And then the Atlanta thing happens on Monday Night Football. And I think that's when Rams fans started to ask themselves, what are they good? What happened to this? And then the Arizona game last week in week 18 was a weird game too. For about 2.5 quarters, they did not look like a very good football team. And then like that, it changed. It's like, oh, there it is right there. And so Arizona stinks. So I don't know if it was more that Arizona was a bad team and finally just kind of fell apart at the right time, or whether the Rams finally got fully invested. I cannot wait to see this game, because I don't know what they're going to look like. I'm optimistic that they will be locked in. I think they kind of lost their way a little bit starting in Carolina. I think they took their foot off the gas a little bit. But they certainly don't have the luxury of kind of trying to figure this out all of a sudden. They got to come out and look sharp, because on the road in the playoffs is never easy.
Yeah, and I felt like I knew who that team was, who the Rams were up until that game happened. And certainly the turnovers, which we'll talk about week 13, were a huge factor in that game. It's not like the Rams had any trouble moving the ball up and down the field. It just came down to Matthew Stafford, who set the record for consecutive touchdown passes without an interception, started throwing interceptions in that game, and it completely flipped it upside on its head. And that led to obviously that loss that Sunday. And look, the Panthers honestly owe the Rams, because had they not lost to Atlanta last Monday night, then we're really not having this conversation, because that brought in to play the 3-way 8-9 tie, which Carolina was able to win because of their head-to-head record against the Falcons, who they swept, and the Bucks, who they split with. Had LA won that game, and the Panthers, of course, losing on Saturday, they missed the playoffs. So hopefully Carolina can repay the Rams by beating them yet again. We'll see how that plays out. But I know the feeling here is just that, hey, you're in the dance. You're 0-0 at this point in time. What happened the first 17 games, 18 weeks of the season no longer matters. Can you go out yet again and take advantage of an opponent who you beat back in week 13 when Vegas didn't think you had a chance? And looking at the spread right now at 10.5 points, Vegas also does not buy into you winning this game. And obviously it's a big game for Bryce Young. They gave up so much to go out there and get him. They trade away Christian McCaffrey. They trade away DJ Moore when they moved up to Chicago to get the number 1 overall pick. And these are the moments where a quarterback has to step up and really carry his team. Matthew Stafford's going to be asked to be the catalyst in this game for the LA. Obviously, there's going to be plenty of other players who are going to have to step up. But Josh Allen, they're going to ask him to carry them. Trevor Lawrence. All these quarterbacks at this stage in the game are going to be asked to be the guy that leads them. And can Bryce Young do this? I don't want to use every game as a referendum. I told people that last week, but games like against Tampa, those are the games that you got him to win. These are the games on Saturday in the playoffs that you went up there to get Bryce Young to go out there and win and to play at a high level and give you an opportunity. And we'll see if he's able to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that's one of the things, and you touched on it a second ago, that the Rams have been very fortunate to have over the last 5 years or so, which is there aren't questions about your quarterback. You got the right guy, right? You have a guy that will likely end up in the Hall of Fame. You have a guy that might win an MVP this year. And you have a guy that you've seen execute at a high level at the most important moments when he won a Super Bowl a few years ago. So the question of, do you have the right guy at quarterback for the Rams at least is, yeah, you do. I was struck, kind of speaking about Bryce Young, I don't watch a ton of Carolina Panthers football, and I certainly don't watch them from, the beginning of a game to the end of the game unless they're playing the Rams. And when I saw him a few weeks ago, I'd seen highlights, I'd seen bits, Monday night or Thursday night or whenever they would show up, you see little bits here and there. And I was always kind of like, yeah, Bryce Young, okay. I know he struggled a little bit. And I watched him play against the Rams. I'm like, that guy's really good. Like what am I missing? They benched this guy for why? And then you watch on Saturday night last weekend against the Bucs. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. So I think it's interesting just where these two teams are with their quarterbacks. Obviously, Stafford's been around for a million years. I think you put your finger on it well. That I do think he will be back a year from now, but I don't know what happens after that. We've kind of been on a year-to-year thing with him over the last 2 or 3 seasons, but coming off the way that he's played this year, I mean, if I were him, I'd certainly want to keep playing, and certainly the money available to top flight quarterbacks is hard to walk away from.
Yeah, and the thing is, and this, we all know that every year you get a different team. You're going to lose 60% of that locker room. You're going to have the Puka Nakuas, Matthew Stafford's going to be around, Jared Verse, those type of guys, but then you're going to have to cycle in and figure out who could help elevate that team. And knowing how it ended for them last year, where they were down the field in the snow in Philadelphia, looked like they were going to win that game. And that could have been a difference between them losing and winning a Super Bowl. And now you sit here, and I do think the Rams are at least in the best path to get back to the Super Bowl, because you're playing against a Panthers team, granted, that you lost to before, but you're going on the road and playing against Carolina, opposed to had they not played their starters and kind of just punted the game and ended up having San Francisco as the 5 seed and them as the 6 seed. You're talking about going to Philly. Or you could have been talking about going to Chicago, which I think would have been obviously far more favorable than playing in Philadelphia. And if the seeds hold, aside from this game, then the Rams get to go play against Seattle. And who's played Sam Darnold better than this Rams defense?
Yeah, nobody. They've turned Darnold. Darnold had a great not even a great fourth quarter. He had a great half of a fourth quarter and a great overtime about a month ago, and he was really good. But other than that, they've had a pretty good run against Darnold. I think you're right. I think that we've talked a lot about this. My everydayers from Locked On Rams, this will be familiar to them, that if you weren't going to be the number 1 seed, I think the number 5 was actually the best spot to be in, because you get the NFC South, and you're going to get a team that is kind of, like you mentioned, kind of limping into the postseason at this point. Even though the matchup didn't go the Rams' way last time, the Rams have had zero luck against the Eagles. Like you mentioned, last year they came within close, they didn't get it done. They had a weird loss to them this year. They got blown out by them during the regular season last year. The Rams don't typically play well in cold weather. So Charlotte, I know it's not supposed to be great weather, but it's going to be better than Philly. It's going to be better than Chicago. So I think that's an advantage there. And I think there's a real chance, I don't know if I bet a ton on it, but I think there's a chance that all 3 road teams in this opening round win their game. And so there's not a crazy scenario that exists where the Rams are home for the divisional round playing against a team like San Francisco, or, and all of a sudden stuff starts to break a certain way. The Packers got to go to Seattle. The Rams get San Francisco back at home. So as far as the path goes, if you're not going to be the number 1, I think this is the best place to be. I agree with that.
Yeah, that is possible, because Green Bay, I look at playoff experience as mattering. Chicago really doesn't have it. Green Bay obviously has been there the last couple of years with that team that has been young, but it's matured. And then, if San Francisco, they lost Tatum Bethune. If they can find a way to just get over the hump, then it could set it could set up nicely. But Carolina's looking for an upset. And these guys, you don't know what you don't know. There's plenty of guys who actually have been with the Rams, who have a Super Bowl ring in that locker room. Austin Corbett told me when I asked him the other day just about last time you were in the dance, it was with LA. You had won a Super Bowl. And he talked about how you get to permanently etch your name in the history of this game when you win a Lombardi trophy. And there's a lot of guys who are getting a first taste of this postseason who want to be able to get another upset win against the Rams here on Saturday. And you talk about matchups. Did not go the Rams' way last time. It did go the Panthers' way.
The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Before every game during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Ain't no need to keep talking. We got a game this weekend between the Bills and the Jaguars, and the loser has to go home.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's playoff time, and it's a big opportunity for the Bills, the smallest market team in the AFC, to head down to Florida and play one of the hottest teams in the NFL.
Yeah, man, don't be trying to steal our motivation and be small market, man. Y'all are blue blood in the NFL. We the ones that everybody's always picking on, dog, and we got to use that motivation for ourselves. Don't be trying to steal reasons for y'all to be all pissed off at us.
You get to be the home underdogs, man. I got to cling to the smallest market thing. The Bills, the Buffalo market, 24% smaller than Jacksonville. You know, this is a big stage for Buffalo.
Yeah, it is a pretty big stage. Last time y'all came down here, my wife said, "Look, we live in the South. Why are their trucks so dirty?" I said, "Baby, their trucks aren't dirty. That's salt. That's because of snow. They drive through snow, and you don't want to be washing that stuff because it's gonna come right back on you." And they came down here and took over a wing spot over here in one of these real good neighborhoods and said that they conquered Jacksonville. Let them know, Joe, that if they come back this time, I got some spots. That might not go too well if they come back down here, but let's just go.
Hey, tell your guys to hold on to their tickets, man. Don't sell them. Go to the game. Go to the game, man.
In Duval, man, they always looking for a way to fleece somebody out of some money, man. But let's get to this game, man. Big storyline is the Jaguars are underdogs, but if you look at them, and I know you're a tape guy, you're big in NFL scouting, and you really watch tape. In my opinion, the Jacksonville Jaguars, in terms of balance with offense, defense, and special teams, they're the hottest team and the most complete team in these playoffs, if you ask me.
Yeah, Jaguars look good, man. There's no doubt about it. 8 in a row, throwing the ball well, stopping the run, getting takeaways on defense. They're obviously exceptional with the kicking game, punter and kicker. They got dynamic kick returner, dynamic punt returner. It's a really good operation. You got innovative young coaches on both sides of the football, and here they are, 13-4, won the South, right? 5-4 to 13-4. They're hot. They're absolutely hot, and it's an impressive outfit. And look, you and I have talked a lot about the Jaguars through the years. It's never been about talent. They've had a lot of good football players. They got the coaching staff right, and they're playing good ball.
This alignment thing, and I know it's a word that now I used to use it all the time, but now it really is. People gonna probably get alignment fatigue. You know how people wear things out, but it looks like that's a big deal these days because, like you mentioned, and people thought I was like a big Trent Baalke hater, the guy that got fired as the GM. I didn't really dislike Trent as far as his talent procurement. As you look at it, you can see in Dallas, anybody can draft people. Team building is totally, totally different. And I know that's right in your wheelhouse when you want to talk about how to build a staff and how the coach and the GM all have to be in alignment. That's really what it is here. Give me your thoughts on it from the outside looking in with the Jaguars. That alignment looks like it's working pretty good, and it's going to be a copycat thing around the NFL.
Well, there's no question. And I think the winding path to get here was obviously very interesting, where the commitment to Baalke, and then Cohen's coming, he's not coming. Baselli gets involved. But I think you can zoom out. James Gladstone, of course, a big part of this operation, and you could feel that alignment. And I've really enjoyed, just as a fan of football, the content that the Jaguars YouTube has put out, kind of going through those stories and behind the scenes stuff. I'm a sucker for all that stuff, and I really enjoyed it with Jacksonville. And I didn't know how it was going to go. Things started looking a little goofy, man. I think anybody could realize that. But then even the Travis Hunter trade, I'm like, really, this is kind of nuts. But then you just kind of saw it come together. Two huge trades. Let's be honest about it. The Jacoby Myers trade, the Greg Newsome trade, getting really good fits for the schemes that they want to run, and then just optimizing the talent. And you saw really coming out of that overseas trip, this team really find itself and play good football. They are aligned. You could tell there's a lot of energy. There's confidence, and I get it. I mean, it's something that they've earned here this year, and very quickly went from, a team that nobody can really figure out what's going on to, oh, here it is. Here's the vision. And I think it does speak to an organizational alignment.
Yeah. So on Locked On NFL, we use clips from local experts, and I'm always pulling Joe Marino clips. So I know one of the things that you have talked about all year is the lack of defense with the Buffalo Bills. Something I'm going to press you on a little bit. I'm going to ask you about that because I think you're absolutely right. With no Joe Burrow, with no Lamar Jackson, and the big one is Patrick Mahomes, is there pressure now on quarterback Josh Allen to actually perform this year and get over the hump? It seems like it's natural that it would happen because there are no obstacles, or at least there are no familiar obstacles in his way.
Yeah, that's such an awful talking point, in my opinion. If you're talking about the Bills' playoff failures, let me tell you who has nothing to do with it. It's Josh Allen, who's probably, respectfully, maybe the greatest statistical quarterback the postseason has ever seen, the greatest touchdown to interception ratio, the most touchdowns per game ever by a quarterback in the playoffs. So the Bills not getting over the hump really has a lot more to do with that defense that has been dreadful in those elimination games against Patrick Mahomes and against Joe Burrow. And so, yeah, I guess you could look at it and say those guys aren't in there, and this is a really ripe path for the Buffalo Bills. But at the same time, I think this has probably been the worst Bills team since they've had the glow up of an upper echelon team, which really kind of happened back in 2020, 7 straight playoff appearances. They've won a playoff game in each of the last, 5 years, they've won at least one playoff game. They're a battle tested team, but this team doesn't really feel like the best version that we've seen. And there's been a lot of highs and lows, certainly a very capable rushing offense, the best in the league. But can the passing offense find consistency? Do they have the weapons to really maximize what Josh Allen can do defensively? They've played a lot better down the stretch, but do they have the pass rush? Can they stay healthy in the postseason, right? Like the Bills have been really unfortunate with defensive injuries, like in playoff games, losing Christian Benford, losing Matt Milano, losing key players. And so I understand the idea that, no Mahomes, no Burrow, Josh Allen, you're the guy. But, I mean, come on. We're smarter than this, right? Football's the ultimate team sport. It's a lot bigger than Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen will do his part. Hopefully the rest of the operation can as well.
Yeah, I used to always beat them up for trading to the Chiefs, allow the Chiefs to get Patrick Mahomes. And a guy here in Jacksonville, Brian Sexton, a long time, used to be the voice of the Jaguars broadcast. He told me, and he told me this before it was obvious. He said, "Oh no, them people in Buffalo ain't mad about Patrick Mahomes. They love that kid." I'm like, "Josh Allen, you crazy, man? You're talking about Patrick Mahomes." He's like, "Wig, trust me." So when somebody is in the know like that and they tell you, I had to pause a little bit on that. Buffalo traded the picks, got the picks and traded the pick to Kansas City so Kansas City could take the dude that's going to beat them forever. But no, it's actually true. I actually believe Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the NFL, and that doesn't come with any labels or any disclaimer. No, he is better, in my opinion, than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, those are your words. I certainly believe it as well. Especially lately, I think Patrick Mahomes has been a little bit removed from playing his best football. But yeah, I mean, look, the stage is set for Josh Allen, but he's also playing through a foot injury. No matter what you hear from Josh Allen or Sean McDermott, it's a big deal. He is battling through this, and I worry about how that limits his mobility, which I think is a huge part of who Josh Allen is. And, I think he's going to have to play his best football, of course, on Sunday and throughout the playoffs if the Bills are going to get this done to kind of overcome some of what this team lacks otherwise.